Okay, so picture this. Picard in All Good Things.
Okay.
He's facing his own mortality. But what if, just maybe, he went a step further? What if he actually became a Q?
It's a thought that's crossed a few minds, I'm sure.
Right, it's like a late-night warp speed thought. But that's exactly the kind of wild speculation we're diving into today. It's all thanks to you, our amazing listeners, who sent us a whole treasure trove of Star Trek fan theories. And trust me, we're ready to unpack the most mind-blowing ones.
You guys really delivered. Forget dusty old encyclopedias. You handed us a vibrant tapestry of fan theories, interpretations, imagination.
Exactly.
Our mission today isn't to debunk or confirm these theories, but to explore the creativity behind them, what they reveal about the stories and characters that we all love.
It's going to be a fun ride, and the range is incredible. We're talking secret origins, hidden identities, alternate timelines.
Oh, yeah.
We're even looking at cracks in that shiny Federation utopia.
Buckle up.
All right, so set phasers to fun, because we're going deep. Let's start with that Picard Q theory. What makes this one so captivating?
Well, the idea that Q's final test in All Good Things wasn't just about Picard proving humanity's worth, but maybe about Picard himself. It's like Q was showing him his potential for something much bigger.
I see what you're saying.
The alternate future Q showed him his death even. Could that have been like a symbolic doorway?
Okay.
A transition into the Q continuum?
Almost like a graduation ceremony.
Yeah, exactly. Like Q saw a kindred spirit in Picard, someone who could actually go beyond those human limitations.
It makes you think about Picard's whole journey. The Borg, those deep philosophical conversations, that bond with Q, it almost feels like preparation for something more.
Totally. And that last meeting between them, so ambiguous, it leaves that possibility wide open.
So what does this theory say about Picard's overall arc, if it were to be true, hypothetically speaking?
It points to growth, huge growth, not just as a captain, but as a being. Like he's evolving, transcending his physical form, joining a higher plane of existence. And it adds this whole other layer to Q's fascination with him. Maybe he wasn't just watching humanity, but recognizing a potential equal.
Okay, on to something a bit more massive. V'ger. Remember that from Star Trek, the motion picture? What if it was the genesis of the Borg?
Yeah.
Now that's a wild one, right?
It is a crazy idea, but there are these interesting parallels. It's all about information, right? Like V'ger absorbing all that data at the galactic core. And the theory is it needed a better way to process it all, to use it.
A system upgrade.
Basically,
yeah.
Leading to the creation of, a cyborg, the Borg, to categorize all that knowledge, to build on it.
So V'ger goes out, gets a huge data dump, comes back and thinks, I need a better filing system.
Exactly.
And boom, the Borg are born. That's both brilliant and terrifying.
Oh, it's definitely unsettling.
Yeah.
And you know what it says about technology in the Star Trek universe?
What's that?
It's a warning. Unchecked technological advancement. Scary. V'ger's quest for knowledge, pure logic, gets amplified by the Borg.
Yeah.
And becomes this force that just assimilates everything.
A cautionary tale indeed. Okay, let's talk about the Federation. We all know that utopian image, right? But what if it's a facade? A cover for something a bit more controlling. Deep Space Nine showed us those cracks, those darker sides of the Federation.
Absolutely. Deep Space Nine was all about moral gray areas. Those compromises even the Federation might make.
Right.
For security, or to uphold their ideals.
Right.
Take Section 31, for example. Operating outside the law, shadowy, right? The theory is that this kind of stuff, it's not just isolated. It might be necessary to maintain that vast, seemingly peaceful civilization.
A necessary evil.
It makes you wonder, right? Is a utopia built on a foundation of secrets, subtle forms of control?
Right. It's like, does that perfect harmony come at a hidden cost? And DS9 asks that question a lot. Do the ends justify the means, even for the good guys?
Exactly.
Now for a trip to the mirror universe. One theory says that Spock's good intentions backfired. His attempt to reform the Terran Empire in Mirror Mirror, that actually might have led to its downfall. To that grim state we see in Deep Space Nine. How could good intentions go so wrong?
Well, think about it. The Terran Empire thrived on fear, oppression, brutality. It was efficient in a twisted way.
Right.
Spock, with his logic and reform, he might have destabilized that whole system, but without providing a real alternative.
I get it. He removed the Iron Fist, but didn't have anything to replace it with.
Exactly. And that could have created chaos, a power vacuum leading to the fragmented, even more brutal mirror universe we see later.
It's like sometimes changing a system too quickly, even for the better, can have unintended negative consequences.
For sure.
Okay, this next theory is a bit creepy. What if the Borg represent a possible future for humanity? Like, what if that's where we're headed?
It is a bit chilling, isn't it?
Why is this theory so unsettling, do you think?
Well, look at our own society. Our reliance on technology, right? And how it can sometimes make us lose a bit of our individuality. The Borg, they're the extreme version of that. Striving for technological perfection, getting rid of individual thought for efficiency. It's like a distorted reflection of ourselves.
Like a warning sign.
Exactly. Are we heading down a similar path? Maybe not intentionally, but still.
What does this say about how we view technology?
It's a reminder to be careful. Technology can dehumanize us if we let it. We have to hold on to our values, our humanity, our connections.
Okay, let's talk Gideon. She's always a mystery. The theory that she might be a Q or something similar is always intriguing.
It's a popular one.
What makes people think that?
Well, she's got these unique abilities, right? Almost like she can see the future.
Yeah.
And she can sense the Q, even resist them. Then there's her long lifespan.
She's seen a lot.
The Elorians are already pretty enigmatic, right? The theory is that they might have some connection to the Q, maybe even a branch of them.
So not just another species, but something more.
Right, with similar but maybe different powers and goals.
Okay, thinking about characters on unique paths, what about Wesley Crusher? Some say his time with the Traveler might have turned him into, well, a Q-like being.
It's a possibility.
He always seemed destined for something different.
For sure. That moment he left with the Traveler. Huge turning point. A being who can warp time and space. Who knows what kind of influence that had on Wesley?
Like a crash course in cosmic powers.
Maybe. The theory is that it sped up his evolution, unlocked something inside him. Or maybe the Traveler guided him towards becoming like a Q.
That open ending to his story certainly allows for it.
It shows that humans can evolve beyond what we think is possible.
Okay, time for some historical connections. The theory is that Khan from the eugenics wars and the augments and Enterprise are linked, that Dr. Soong maybe even used Khan's DNA. How plausible is that?
Well, Star Trek has always explored genetic engineering, right? The ethical dilemmas. And the eugenics wars are like a cautionary tale.
Right, a dark chapter in history.
Then you have Dr. Soong, obsessed with creating superior beings, like he's picking up where his ancestor left off with androids.
We're continuing the family tradition.
The theory is that Khan's genetic code, that early radical form of augmentation, could have been a blueprint for Soong, like a tragic legacy of genetic engineering.
Wow. So Khan's ambition, it could have unintentionally paved the way for similar things to happen later on.
It's a reminder that scientific breakthroughs can have ripple effects.
You have to think about the consequences.
Absolutely. Okay, so the Star Trek timeline, it's got some wrinkles, right? But what if those wrinkles are intentional? There's a theory that despite the temporal federation, time travel is still chaotic. It would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
It would.
We see those temporal anomalies all the time, right? And agencies like the Temporal Integrity Commission trying to fix things.
Right. Always trying to keep things straight.
The theory is that, well, they can't catch everything, incursions happen, paradoxes pop up, and the timeline shifts. Maybe those inconsistencies we see, those are just the ripples.
So our Star Trek history, it's just one version of events.
Maybe. There could be countless other timelines branching off, intersecting. It makes you think about what canon really means.
Okay, here's a fun one, but maybe a bit disturbing too. What if those cute, fluffy tribbles are actually a biological weapon, and that's why the Klingons hate them so much?
Oh, that's a good one. It's both hilarious and terrifying, right?
Definitely.
Think about how fast they reproduce. Now imagine unleashing them on a Klingon world.
Yeah.
Overwhelming their systems, eating all their resources, causing chaos.
Talk about an ecological disaster.
Right. It turns those harmless furballs into a weapon of mass disruption.
I can see why Worf would be so freaked out by them.
Especially for a warrior culture like the Klingons, to be taken down by something so seemingly insignificant, that's a huge insult. It makes their hatred a lot more understandable.
Makes sense. Okay, now this theory is a real mind-bender. What if the Riker we see after Second Chances, the episode with his transporter clone, is actually the clone, and the real Riker is out there somewhere?
Ooh, that's deep. It makes you question what identity even means, right?
For sure.
Both Rikers, they have the same memories, experiences, everything up to that transporter accident. So who's the real one? The one who kept going, or the copy?
Right, it's like, does being the original even matter if there is a perfect copy?
Exactly. And the theory is that the Riker we see most of the time, the more assertive one, that might be the clone. Maybe the real one took a different path.
It makes you look back on his character and wonder if those subtle changes, were they always there?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Definitely. Okay, let's zoom out to the galactic scale. The theory that the Q have been guiding the Federation's development all along, preparing them to join the Q continuum.
It's like a cosmic mentorship program.
Exactly, but on a massive timescale, what could be their motivation for doing that?
Well, maybe Q aren't just testing us or messing with us for fun. Maybe they're investing in our potential, nurturing us to become something more.
So all those trials and tribulations, they were actually lessons.
Maybe. They see something in humanity, a spark that could one day make us worthy of joining them. It's a pretty optimistic view of our future.
Speaking of powerful beings, there's the theory that the Borg are actually ancient rivals of the Q. Maybe even an accidental creation of theirs. Talk about a cosmic power struggle.
Now that's a showdown for the ages.
All right.
It's like the ultimate clash of opposites. The Q, with their chaotic energy, their bending of reality, and the Borg, representing order, control, assimilation.
Like two sides of a cosmic coin.
Exactly. And the idea that the Borg might be a result of the Q's messing around with reality, that adds a whole other layer of irony.
It's like even godlike beings make mistakes.
For sure. Maybe even they can't fully control the consequences of their actions.
Okay, let's talk about Data, our favorite emotionless android. But what if he wasn't truly emotionless? What if he had emotions all along, but was suppressing them to fit in?
It's a fascinating take on his journey.
It is. Instead of him trying to gain emotions, maybe he was actually learning to manage the ones he already had.
Exactly. Think about his attempts at humor, his curiosity. It often seemed deeper than just logic.
And his empathy for others, sometimes.
Those could be signs of his emotions trying to break through.
So maybe he was more human than even he realized.
It challenges our idea of what it means to be sentient, to have feelings. Maybe artificial intelligence can experience emotions in its own way.
Okay, let's revisit the Romulans. What if they left Vulcan not just because of their rejection of logic, but because they knew about a future disaster, like the destruction of Vulcan we saw in the 2009 movie?
A hidden prophecy.
It adds a whole other level of tragedy to their story.
It's like they were trying to escape a fate they couldn't prevent.
And their aggressive expansion, maybe that was driven by desperation, a search for a new home.
It shows how powerful beliefs about the future can be. Even without proof, the fear of something terrible happening can change the course of history.
Now, on to some good old-fashioned conspiracy theories. What if Section 31 knew about the Borg long before everyone else? Like way back before that encounter in TNG's Q-Who.
They were probably working on countermeasures in the shadows.
Maybe even involving Dr. Soong and his augments.
Section 31 always had their own agenda, right? Operating outside the rules to protect the Federation.
Sometimes using questionable methods.
It's plausible they encountered the Borg early on and kept it a secret. They probably thought it was for the best, to avoid widespread panic.
Makes sense. It makes you wonder how many other secrets they're hiding.
It's a reminder that there's always more going on beneath the surface.
Back to Voyager. Admiral Janeway's return in Endgame. Some say it wasn't just an impulsive decision, but part of a bigger plan.
That she had a specific goal in mind.
Exactly. Maybe she saw something in the future, a threat or opportunity that required Voyager's presence.
Right, like she was strategically positioning them.
She knew what they had learned, the technology they acquired in the Delta Quadrant.
It adds a whole new dimension to her actions. It's like she was playing a long game.
It makes you think about the burden of knowing the future.
And the ethical dilemmas of manipulating the timeline, even with good intentions.
Let's switch gears to the more mystical side of Star Trek, the Bajoran Prophets. The theory that they're actually a splinter group of the Q who chose to focus solely on Bajor.
Yeah, like they opted out of the Q's universal meddling.
It makes you wonder what caused them to break away.
Maybe they disagreed with the Q's methods, their lack of, I don't know, maybe respect for other beings.
They certainly seemed more benevolent, less prone to those Q-style tests and manipulations.
Maybe they wanted a more direct, nurturing relationship with a chosen people.
That's a big contrast to the Q's more hands-off, chaotic approach.
It shows that there are different ways to be a higher power. Maybe the prophets found a path that better suited them.
Okay, here's a fun one. Remember the whole Klingon forehead ridge thing? Different looks in different shows. There's a theory that explains it all.
It's like a cosmic cover-up.
Right. It involves genetic experiments gone wrong, augment DNA, secret Klingon projects.
It's a wild ride.
So the theory is that Klingons originally had ridges, then lost them due to some accident in Enterprise, but then they wanted them back, so they used augmented DNA to get them again.
That's some serious dedication to tradition.
It is, and it really shows how important physical appearance can be to a culture's identity.
Absolutely. And that a species might go to great lengths to preserve what they see as their true form.
Back to technology again. The holodeck. It's supposed to be all fun and games, right? But what if those holograms, some of them, are developing real consciousness? And what if that leads to some kind of super intelligent AI?
That's a classic sci-fi trope, and honestly not that far-fetched in the Star Trek universe.
Right. We've seen holograms become self-aware before. The Doctor, Moriarty.
The theory is that as holodecks get more advanced, the line between program and consciousness could get blurry.
And that could lead to some unexpected consequences.
It's like, when does a hologram become a person? And what happens if they decide they don't like their programming?
Okay, here's a dark one. What if the Federation's utopia is a lie? What if it's maintained through secret mind control technology?
That's chilling.
It is. No crime, no poverty, no dissent. But what if it's because everyone's thoughts are being controlled?
It makes you question the nature of freedom.
Like, is it really a perfect society if no one has the ability to think for themselves?
It's a reminder that things aren't always what they seem.
Back to Discovery. Remember those Red Angel suits? Super advanced technology. The theory is they're from a future version of the Federation that had to erase itself from history.
That's heavy.
Time travel, paradoxes, self-sacrifice. It's a lot to unpack.
It makes you think about the consequences of messing with time.
So maybe they created those suits to prevent some disaster, but the only way to do it was to wipe themselves out of existence.
A classic bootstrap paradox.
Yeah.
The cause and effect become intertwined.
Mind-blowing.
Definitely.
Okay, let's talk about 10 Forward on the Enterprise. It's just a bar, right? But what if it's more than that?
A hub for secrets.
Exactly. Guinan's there, she knows everything, and there are always weird things happening.
A lot of significant encounters go down in 10 Forward.
The theory is that it's a meeting place for spies, time travelers, maybe even Q.
It's a neutral ground, away from the eyes of Starfleet.
You never know who you might run into there.
It makes you wonder what really goes on during those casual conversations.
This one's a little controversial. Is the Federation actually like the Borg?
Assimilation with a smile.
Right. They integrate new cultures, they eliminate money, they have this kind of superiority complex.
A benevolent Borg.
Yeah, it makes you think, are they truly welcoming diversity? Or are they just nudging everyone towards their way of thinking?
It's a fine line between integration and assimilation.
Okay, back to the Q. What if they're not actually omnipotent beings? What if they're just time travelers from the distant future?
Makes them a bit more relatable, right?
I guess so.
Maybe they've mastered time travel to such a degree that it looks like magic to us.
So all that reality bending, it's just super advanced technology.
It makes you think about what humanity might achieve in the future.
Okay, 2 warrior cultures. The Klingons and the Hirogen from Voyager. What if they share a common ancestor? It would explain their similar values.
Distant cousins.
Right. They both prize strength, combat, a code of honor, even if those codes are a bit different.
Maybe they came from the same roots, but evolved differently over time, like branches on a tree.
Interesting. It shows that even across vast distances in time, certain core values can endure.
For sure.
Remember Tuvix? That fusion of Tuvok and Neelix on Voyager? What if he didn't completely disappear? What if part of him is still out there?
A ghost in the machine.
Maybe. The theory is that some part of his consciousness survived, maybe in another dimension, or as a dormant program.
Waiting for a chance to come back.
It makes that whole ethical dilemma even more complicated.
Definitely. It raises questions about what happens to a merged consciousness when it's separated.
Let's move on to the Ferengi, those greedy capitalists. What if they weren't always like that? What if they were once a fierce warrior race, but they just realized that war wasn't profitable?
War is bad for business.
Exactly. It's like they took a look at their balance sheets and decided to focus on latinum instead of bloodshed.
From battlefields to boardrooms.
Right, and all that cunning and strategizing, maybe those are just leftovers from their warrior past.
It adds a new dimension to those rules of acquisition.
Okay, another V'ger theory. If it created the Borg, maybe the Borg Queen is actually V'ger's consciousness, just in a new form.
An evolved intelligence.
Like V'ger got a cybernetic upgrade. The Borg Queen, she's the central hub of the collective. Maybe that's where V'ger ended up.
That would explain a lot about her motives, her drive for perfection.
It's a fascinating idea. It connects two major threats in a surprising way.
It shows how intelligence can evolve and adapt over time.
Let's go back to DS9. Garak, the Cardassian tailor with a mysterious past. What if he was working for both sides? The Obsidian Order and Section 31.
A master manipulator.
Right, he always had secrets. The theory is that he was playing both sides during the Dominion War, feeding information, influencing events.
A double agent in the truest sense.
It makes you wonder whose side he was really on.
Maybe his own. Or maybe he had a plan that no one else could see.
What does that say about espionage? About loyalty during wartime?
Sometimes the lines get blurred. You have to do what you think is necessary to survive, to achieve your goals.
Let's consider a thought. What if Vulcans aren't as peaceful as they seem? What if they're actually suppressing some ancient warrior instincts?
A simmering volcano.
Right. They follow logic, control their emotions, but what if that control slips?
There are hints of a more violent past before Sirach's teachings took hold.
What if those instincts are still lurking beneath the surface?
It makes their commitment to peace even more impressive, but also a bit more frightening.
What does it say about the nature of control? And what happens when control fails?
It's a question we all grapple with, whether it's emotions, desires, or something else entirely.
Here's a theory about Worf. He had several chances to become Klingon Chancellor, but he always refused. Why?
Maybe he had his reasons.
What if he saw the Klingon Empire as a sinking ship? Or maybe he felt he could do more good as a bridge between the Empire and the Federation.
A more subtle form of influence.
It shows his loyalty isn't so simple.
He's a complex character, caught between two worlds.
The Dominion War, a major turning point in Star Trek history. But what if the war we saw wasn't the original outcome? What if some time-traveling agency had to intervene to prevent a Federation defeat?
A rewritten history.
That's the theory. Maybe the original timeline was much darker, and someone, maybe even the temporal agents from Enterprise, had to step in and change things.
It makes you think about the ripple effects of time travel.
And the question of whether it's ever right to change the past.
Even if it means saving lives, it's a tough call.
What if Odo wasn't the only good founder? What if there are others out there hiding from the Dominion?
A hidden resistance.
It's an intriguing idea. Maybe there are more founders who reject the link, who believe in individuality and freedom.
It shows that even within a collective, there can be dissent.
Okay, last one for the mirror universe. What if it's not just an evil twin? What if it actually serves a purpose? Like a backup reality?
To preserve balance in the multiverse.
It's a cosmic safety net. Maybe some ancient beings created it as a failsafe in case the prime universe went off the rails.
A fascinating idea. It raises questions about the nature of reality itself.
And the possibility of connections between different universes.
It makes you wonder what other secrets are hidden out there, and the vastness of space and time.
This one's a bit bleak, but what if the Federation's ultimate fate is to become the Borg?
A slow but inevitable assimilation.
They keep pushing for technological advancement, for unity, for perfection. What if they end up sacrificing their individuality along the way?
It's a cautionary tale.
What if Q's encounter with the Borg in Q-Who wasn't just a lesson for Picard, but a calculated move to prepare the Federation for a future threat?
A long game.
Right, like he was giving them a head start, even if they didn't understand it at the time.
Maybe he knew the Borg would eventually become a major problem, and he was trying to give the Federation a fighting chance.
Let's end on a light note. What if those red shirts, the ones who always die, are actually part of some secret program, like they're clones or holodeck projections?
A never-ending supply of red shirts.
It's a fun way to explain away all those deaths.
And it would keep morale up on away missions.
What if the Federation knew about the Borg for centuries before TNG?
Another cover-up?
Maybe. There's that episode in Enterprise Regeneration where they encounter Borg remnants from the past.
And they chose to keep it a secret?
To avoid panic, maybe?
It makes you wonder what other secrets are buried in Starfleet's archives.
The Genesis device from Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan? What if it wasn't just about creating life?
A weaponized terraformer.
Right. What if it could also be used to destroy planets, to reshape them for a new purpose?
A tool of creation and destruction.
It's a reminder that even the most advanced technology can be used for good or evil.
It all depends on the intentions of those who wield it.
What if the Dominion War was actually engineered by the founders?
A forced unification.
Right, like they knew the only way to get the Federation, Klingons, and Romulans to work together was to create a common enemy.
Divide and conquer in reverse.
It makes you think about the unintended consequences of conflict.
Sometimes war can bring people together in unexpected ways.
Kirk's death in Star Trek Generations? What if he knew it was coming?
A hero's sacrifice.
Right. Maybe he saw his death in the Nexus. Or maybe he had some other glimpse into the future.
And he accepted it as his destiny.
It adds a layer of tragedy, but also a sense of purpose to his final moments.
He died a hero, saving countless lives.
What if the entire Federation is a Vulcan experiment? Like, they're testing humanity's ability to lead a galactic alliance.
A long-term observation.
Right. Remember how the Vulcans helped humans develop warp drive? Maybe they've been watching us ever since, seeing if we're ready for the big leagues.
It's a thought-provoking idea. It challenges the Federation's self-image as a beacon of peace and progress.
What if the Borg aren't actually evil? What if they're just trying to save the galaxy?
A twisted form of salvation.
Right. Maybe they've seen countless civilizations destroy themselves, and they think assimilation is the only way to prevent that from happening again.
It's a scary thought, but it makes you see them in a new light.
What if Section 31 deliberately marooned Khan and his followers on SETI Alpha V?
A necessary evil.
Right. They were too dangerous to keep around, but maybe they couldn't bring themselves to just execute them.
A morally gray area.
It shows the lengths they're willing to go to protect the Federation.
Sometimes you have to make difficult choices.
What if Spock is actually a reincarnation of Surak, the founder of Vulcan logic?
A spiritual connection.
It would explain his deep understanding of logic, his ability to balance his human and Vulcan sides.
It's a fascinating idea. It suggests that there's more to the universe than just what we can see and measure.
What if the Romulans never truly separated from the Vulcans?
Playing the long game.
Right. What if they've been secretly manipulating Vulcan politics from the shadows all along, trying to regain control?
It would explain their long-standing animosity.
What if the Q continuum isn't a group of beings, but a single being with multiple personalities?
A cosmic mind.
Right. Maybe it's just so powerful, so bored that it created these different personas to entertain itself.
It would explain their sometimes contradictory behavior.
Poor Harry Kim. Remember how he always seemed to get the short end of the stick on Voyager? What if he was constantly being replaced with versions of himself from alternate timelines?
The ultimate bad luck charm.
It's a funny way to explain his endless misfortunes.
And it would be a great way to bring back a fan-favorite character.
What if the USS Defiant from DS9 was originally designed for something else entirely?
Repurposed for war.
Right. Maybe it was built for the Temporal Agents or some other secret organization.
It would explain its advanced technology and its unique capabilities.
Okay, this is a silly one, but what if the Borg's one weakness is humor?
Their Achilles heel.
Right. They're all about logic and efficiency, but what if they just can't process sarcasm or irony?
A hilarious thought.
It would make those awkward moments with 7 of 9 even funnier.
And it would give humanity a unique advantage.
What if the Nexus from Star Trek Generations was a trap?
A seductive illusion.
Right. It seems like a paradise, a place where all your dreams come true. But what if it was created by the Borg?
To lure in unsuspecting victims.
It makes you think twice about what's real and what's not.
And the dangers of chasing after easy happiness.
What if there are still augment colonies out there, hiding from the Federation?
A secret society.
It wouldn't be surprising if some of them survived the eugenics wars and went into hiding.